3:06 is the time. Kale and Company live from the Beacon Building today. And you know what that music means? It's time for Coach Carol Phillips. Coach Carol, good afternoon to you.
Hello, Ken. So
nice
glad
to
to be
see
here.
you. And it's great to see you. Beautiful day. Beautiful Tuesday afternoon, about 46 degrees. I just went out to feed my meter. And very, very nice in downtown Manchester.
Very sunny, very pleasant.
Snow's almost all gone from our 4.5 inches or whatever it was yesterday.
That was
It was
funny.
almost all gone yesterday around noontime.
Right. Within hours, it was gone, which was lovely.
Very true.
No shoveling.
No shoveling. You just kind of blow it off your car yesterday. Yeah.
That's right. We'll get to summer weather at some point.
Now, I know you have a guest today, but you wanted to talk about a couple of things first.
I do.
Yeah.
I wanted to let everybody know that I have a new link to my website just to make it easier for people. It's askcoachcarol.com. That links to my website. And also I wanted to mention that I will be speaking at Spear Memorial Hospital's Wine, Women, and Wisdom event on Thursday, April 7th from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Common Man in Plymouth, New Hampshire. And if people want to sign up for the event, they can go to my website, askcoachcarol.com, go down to the bottom of the homepage and link onto my Facebook page, and there's a post on there with a link. So they can go to that and sign up. It'll be fun. It's a event for women. Well, nice, relaxing time. There's going to be 2 speakers, and it'll be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Outstanding. Again, the date?
It is Thursday, April 7th, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m., and raising funds for some of their community events. So Spear Memorial Hospital, you can go to their website, find their event page, and sign up through that avenue also.
Outstanding. Outstanding. All right. And is that it? You've covered it all?
That's it.
All right. Very good. So I think it's time now that you bring on your guest.
All right. I'm really excited to have a special guest today. Prissy Elrod is a keynote speaker, artist, humorist, and author. Prissy and her work have been featured in news magazine articles, covers, and radio shows. Prissy attended Flagler College in St. Augustine, Florida, then Florida State University, where she earned her master's degree. Prissy's book, Far Outside the Ordinary, which is fabulous, by the way, I could not put it down, was featured in the esteemed print graphic design magazine after winning one of the top 350 best designs in the United States in 2014. Her book is a favorite among book clubs across the country, and I can definitely see why. In addition to working on the sequel to Far Outside the Ordinary, Prissy's latest venture is using her award-winning book cover, which shows a beautiful butterfly with a caterpillar nestled within, to create beautiful adult coloring books, which are really popular right now. Joining us live from her hometown of lovely Tallahassee, Florida, is Prissy Elrod. Prissy, welcome to Ask Coach Carol.
Hey, Carol. Thank you. Nice
How
to
are
hear y'all
you?
talking about the weather being so cold when I'm sitting here in Florida. I was smiling just listening to you two talk about shoveling snow. It's such a foreign subject.
What's the weather down there today, although I don't want to hear it?
Well, when you said, and it's 41 degrees, we're so excited. I'm just sitting here thinking, holy cow, that's cold.
That's warm for us, Prissy.
I know. Actually, it was cold here last night. Believe it or not, I think they said it went into the 30s, but I still had my air conditioning on. I didn't know that, so I had a comforter on.
That's so funny. It kind of reminds me of us up here when we have an unexpected warm day and we still have the heat on in the house.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for joining us. I would love for you to go over a little bit about your story and what the book is about without giving away the ending.
Oh, yeah, I definitely don't want to give away the ending. Well, basically, it's definitely a Southern story, and it's a although cancer is the subject, it's really not what the book's about. It's a story about a Southern woman, me, who absolutely refused to let a terminal diagnosis steal my husband. So when Western medicine fails and gives no hope, I turn to unconventional Eastern practices that are extraordinary. They're crazy, to put it mildly, but I did it. And later, when hope is lost and I realize that's not working, I invite a Southern black caregiver, a gentleman named Cornelius Duhart, to move into my home and help care for my dying husband because I had 2 daughters, and of course, the way it works with a terminal diagnosis, he was a 200-pound man, and we were little women, so I needed someone who could lift him and stuff. So he moved in with us, and that's when the story took on a life of its own. It's almost like what happened. It's like an upstairs, downstairs, but it's more front room, back room. The back room where my husband is fighting for his life and losing, and the front room is where these caregivers move in, and it's a hilarious story of their funny shenanigans and me trying to deal with things that are happening. If you take each of the happenings on their own, they're out of the ordinary, but when you weave them together into a narrative arc of a story, it's so far outside the ordinary that no one would believe it. So
and you know
make it up.
Yeah, and this is a true story, and it starts out with your husband coming home and unexpectedly having unusual symptoms, and then you find out that he's been diagnosed with brain cancer.
Right.
And
the same kind that you're reading about in the news now, where people, the glioblastoma, which strikes men, generally men, but it does affect women, but it's generally men between the ages of 50 to 64. But it comes out of the blue. He doesn't remember who I am. He doesn't know how many children we have. And then it goes away and he's fine, and we sort of forget about it. You know, we think to ourselves, well, maybe he skipped a meal and it's low blood sugar or whatever. But what really happens is he goes in for his annual physical, and we find out he has a year to live. So the gist of the story is how you go after the chase. If you have a survival, if someone says you have an 8% chance of survival, well, I have the personality, which I can't help, that I believe in to my core that he was the 8%. So it didn't matter their credentials. I made up my mind that he was going to be the one that survived, and many, many, many people do that. And I'm not saying that's wrong. It's called hope, and everybody has to have hope. So,
and if he had been older, it might have been assumed that he maybe had dementia, and maybe
it works.
It wouldn't have been addressed as quickly,
or even early onset Alzheimer's.
Right.
But at any rate, so I do these. I do all kinds of treatments, from Indian chiefs to crazy herbal foot soaks to a show I saw profiled on Dateline about this doctor who was from Czechoslovakia that could cure brain tumors. I believed it, and I said, hey, we're going there. So it's a story of this chase dragging this poor man. So when I wrote the story, it really was a story. I wrote it for my daughters, and so they would understand why I was crazy during that last year of his life. And I really didn't write this for anybody else, but it sort of became a story that really applied to a lot of people, and not just with people with cancer, but people who all of a sudden are jolted with an unexpected event in their life and they don't know how to move forward. And
that's really important, because many people are suddenly put in the role of caregiver, which is very, very difficult, very challenging, and you're trying to still hold the job and have a normal life, but it is all-consuming.
Oh, yeah, especially if you have children and young children. And you know what? The truth is, it doesn't even have to be an illness. I mean, it could be a divorce. It could be a job loss. It could be anything that completely jolts your world and you're in a new normal. Normal is no longer what it used to be. You have a new normal, and you've got to learn to live with that and move on and take care of yourself so you can take care of the people around you. Because it's like not having any oxygen. If you don't have any, how in the world are you going to breathe it into somebody else? So, So anyway, it's not a sad story. That's the first thing that people think, oh, another book about cancer. Oh, Lord, I can't read that. But
no, I didn't find it to be sad.
No, it's really a laughter through tears. I mean, I had to find humor in something so tragic, because it was the only way that I think God works in mysterious ways, and He brought these wonderful people into my life to keep me from just crawling into a hole. And they really loved our family through those dark months, and it was really for a Southern woman to have. There's so much anger in the world today, and this story brings such a heartfelt love between Southern blacks and Southern whites, and it's not the way people think it is. It's a beautiful love story, and I tell it, and I wrote it too to share the story of these caregivers and give everyone a lesson in paying it forward as they did. I still am very close with all of them, and those that are still alive. So, and then the third part of the book, of course, is another extraordinary story, and it's a love story. So it's really three parts of a love story. Is the way the book sort of works.
Okay, and before we get into talking about how you brought in caregivers, can you share with us your website, and in case people want to look it up while we're talking?
Oh, sure. It's easy. It's PrissyElrod.com. My first name, my last name.com.
And the book is Far Outside the Ordinary, which people can find on Amazon.
It's on Amazon. It's on my website. It's on iBooks, ebooks, Kindles, audio.
So share with us the story about you when you realized that you needed help. You couldn't do everything by yourself, and you needed to bring in caregivers, and what you went through emotionally at the time.
Well, it took a long time before I was willing to bring in a caregiver, because I just didn't have the personality to turn that over to someone. But you have to realize at some point that you can't do it all. And it really was my daughter who finally was crying and said, please, please, please get somebody in to help us, because it was a situation where she was embarrassed by having to take care of her father, and thought he couldn't speak, but she knew he would be very embarrassed that I was trying to do it with my daughters and everything. So I have a good friend, and actually Cornelius Duhart is the gentleman that came to me, and he had taken care of her father during the last years of his life. And this man actually had been in Tallahassee, where I am, and had a reputation for aiding the dying. And in fact, the girl's father happened to be the governor, the previous governor of the state, Leroy Collins. So he had a very high recommendation. I didn't just bring this man in, I had good references. And the moment I met him, I knew that he was sent from above. I mean, I just had a connection to him instantly. And he really came for the night so that I could sleep, because it had been months since I'd slept more than 2 hours at a time. So right,
when you're caregiving, it's mentally and physically exhausting.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when do you sleep? If whoever's sick, it roams around at night, for instance, someone with Alzheimer's, which is much like someone with a brain tumor, you can't really close your eyes, because you don't know if they'll leave or where they'll go, and or if something happens to them, or if they need medicine. Or in my case, I was doing some crazy treatment, and I had to infuse and do this and this and this. So Duhart, and I call him Du, and even though my name's Prissy, he calls me Christy to this day. He would come from 7 to 7, and he would let me sleep, and then he would take care of my husband, whose name was Boone. And then he just would talk to him. It was nice for my husband to have a man in the house, I think, too. He was so protective and worried about me and his two daughters. It was a hard thing to go through, I'm telling you. I just think when you go through something like that, you don't think past that very day. If I had looked to say, how am I going to get through this, you would never get through it. So you go hour by hour. Well, I'm going to get through today.
Right.
And then it'll be tomorrow. And that's kind of what you do. But the caregivers, you have to learn that you can't, even if you are a giver all the time, at some point in your life when something like this happens, you have to learn how to be a taker and take help from people who offer it, and say yes And even as a Southern girl, we always say, "Oh, I'll do it for you. I'll do it for you. I'll do it for you." I mean, I think everybody does that. But I had to finally say, "Okay, yes, would you do that? Yes, would you bring a meal? Yes, would you come sit with my husband while I go for a walk?" And you have to learn to accept people's, because it makes them feel good to do for you. And
right, and that's important, because caregivers, usually the person who steps up to the plate to be the caregiver is a huge giver.
Exactly.
And they are not used to taking or receiving. So finding that balance for your sanity and so that you stay healthy is really important.
You're 100% right. And I wasn't healthy. I mean, I was healthy, but if I ate anything, I wrote in the book, if I even opened a can of Ensure, my husband had a keen sense of smell, and it would make him sick. He just had a profound sickness after the radiation and stuff. So I lost, as he was losing weight, I was losing weight. We didn't look good, to say the least. We matched in our coloring, and I, looking back on that, I should have done something to keep myself healthier. And I would do what I could, but you have to really take care of yourself, especially when you have children, because it's so hard for them to watch someone dying, and then if they watch the only other person who is their mother or father or sister or brother, getting sick too, that scares them to death. So.
Yeah, and you've talked to me before about trying to stay positive during that time, which is very difficult, and keeping things normal for your children.
Exactly, and I did. My children, my friends would say, "How are you doing this?" And my children would say, but I never let them see me cry. I really knew that and that's a hard thing to do. I never let them see me scared or cry, because they had to have hope so they could go on with their normal life. They were in college, they were in high school, and if they, if I set the tone, they knew what was going on in that house. It was bad enough. So when they left that house and went into their normal environment, I wanted them to feel like a normal kid, not be burdened with, "Oh my gosh, how is my mother going to get through today?" I was positive and peppy. It was almost unnatural. But when no one was around, I found my little space, and I, crawled into that little space, and I suffered on my own. I mean, you have to let it out. You can't, not cry. And believe you me, my closet, I had to throw away a couple of shoes from the tears that were overflowing inside of my shoes.
And your book, it's obvious you're going through a tragedy, but you kept the humor in it. And share with us one of the stories in the book that was funny, including the time that you went out to find somebody who you knew could help you, but at the time was homeless.
Well, when Duhart came, he was wonderful, that 7 to 7 shift at night. But as my husband deteriorated, and he had a second job, which he worked at the hospital as a lab technician. So he would leave to go at 7 in the morning, and I would know, how am I going to help my husband, get out of his wheelchair, or get out of the bed, or get on the potty, or do anything like that. So I would cry, and he'd say, "Okay, I'll get my sister to come in." So he got his sister to come and help, and she had the 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So they were somewhat of a Jack and Jill. And then they would go on Sundays to church. So they had to bring in someone to help me on Sundays, because, again, it's not that I was a needy person. I could not lift him no matter how hard I tried.
Right.
And so they brought in someone from the church to help me. And then one day, it was like a Wednesday, and neither Dew or Sally, his sister, could work, and they had the flu bug. So I said, "Well, I'll get Willie, the Sunday guy. He can come in on Wednesday." And they're like, "No, he can't come in on Wednesday. He can only come on Sunday." And I said, "Well, he can come on Wednesday. Why couldn't he?" And they're like, "Because he can't, Prissy," or Christy, as they call me. So I said, "Well, the whole chapter is about, I don't understand, if he's not working for somebody else, and he needs money, because he's, only works for me on Sunday. Why can't he work today, Wednesday? While they're throwing up, I'm having this conversation with them because they have this flu bug. So finally they say, well, he can't work for you because I kept saying, what's his phone number? What's his address? What's his phone number? What's his address? And they finally say, he doesn't have an address, and he doesn't have a phone because he lives at the homeless shelter. And I'm like, after 5 months, I'm finding out that the man who works for me on Sunday is actually being picked up from the homeless shelter. So I have to get in my car and go to the homeless shelter. Well, the shelter's closed during the day. Who knew that? I didn't know that. This was back before we knew so many homeless people. So they tell me that he's probably over in this lot somewhere, and I go over to this lot in the middle of Tallahassee, and there's, 50 homeless people sitting on logs with a fire. It's February, freezing cold. And I go around this lot tapping all these people on the back looking for my Willie to come and help me. And when I finally find him after, 13 taps on the back, he is drunk as a skunk. He's stoned. But I put him in my car. I drag him, put him in my car, and I bring him home. And I'm thinking to myself as I'm driving home, I really am a crazy woman. I have this homeless man that I really don't know anything about in the back of my car, taking him to my home where my 2 daughters are. But I didn't have a choice. This is before they had hospice homes or anything like this. So
right. I'm sure.
It's all true. Everything. You can't make it up.
Right. And I'm sure at the time you were thinking, why is this happening? Why am I going through this? But it made a great story for your book.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was a great movie scene, as they say. And then I don't want to give much away, but oh my gosh, then things start happening with the brother and sister who are living with me. I help him get a divorce because he's so miserable and unhappy, and he can't do a good job taking care of my husband. So I help him get a divorce, and then I find out that was not a good idea, Prissy. You should have never done that, but I'm not giving that away. And so there's just one scene after another. There's a robbery at McDonald's. I'm having to call the sheriff here, who I happen to know, who was a friend, and he's the one actually who had arrested Ted Bundy. So, Ted Bundy,
geez.
So it's funny. Somebody said, Prissy, most people don't know who Ted Bundy is. There's a younger people out there. I said, anybody who doesn't know the story of Ted Bundy needs to go read see a few crime shows.
You're thinking, yeah, that's probably not too accurate. A lot of people know who Ted Bundy is.
Yeah. So I'm like dealing with bonds and jails and stuff that is so out of my ordinary. That's why the book is called Far Outside the Ordinary, because trust me, I'm an ordinary girl, and this was all so far outside the ordinary that before I had even written this book, and you know this, Carol, somehow my story got out to Hollywood, and there was a writer who came to Tallahassee and came to see me and wanted to buy the rights for this story. And he worked.
Yeah, I can see that. It's a tragic story, but it really gives hope to caregivers and really sends the message that you really do need to surround yourself with help and positive people. So,
exactly.
Prissy, hang in there. We're going to be taking a break, and we'll come back and talk some more about you and your wonderful book, Far Outside the Ordinary.
All right.
Okay.
Sounds good. All right. Hang in there, Prissy.
I'm hanging.
All right. Coach Carol Phillips is here. 3:34 is the time. Having lots of fun today with Coach Carol Phillips in our Ask Coach Carol segment, and her very special guest, Prissy Elrod. And Carol, take it away.
Yeah, I met Prissy when I went out to New York City to promote my book, and met her, and we just hit it off right away, and had to have a copy of her book and couldn't put it down on my flight home from New York City. And so Prissy is a keynote speaker, artist, humorist, and author of Far Outside the Ordinary. And Prissy, share your website again and how people can get in touch with you.
Okay, my website, Prissy Elrod, PrissyeLrod.com. And they can get in touch with me there. I also have a Facebook page that is Prissy Elrod, author. Actually, I have 2 Facebook pages. How's that working for us, Carol?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, they'll be able to find you. Yep. So, the other thing I wanted to make sure we talked about was your new coloring books. Those are really popular right now with adults as far as reducing
I tell you,
stress.
I wish I'd had those when I was a caregiver, because trust me, they've done studies at the Mayo Clinic and the Cleveland Clinic, and they're putting them in all of these. You know, it's just such a mind relaxer. It just takes the edge off of everything, and they're really taking off everywhere. I'm sure you've seen them in every nook and corner. But when my butterfly image became, people were saying, do you have anything with the picture of the butterfly? Because it really is a beautiful little image. I thought, butterflies, everybody loves a butterfly. So I kind of got in on that trend when it was just coming out, and we did books on butterflies, flowers, and circles. So now people have these colored, girls, mostly women, have these coloring book parties, and I laugh, I say they drink wine, wine, W-H-I-N-E, and they color. I mean, it's just an evening of coloring, and then I made them so that you can actually use paints or gel pens and tear them out, and they fit a standard frame, so that's really kind of fun. And then I did some T-shirts with the image, because people seem to like this butterfly image so much. So it's
the cover of your book is gorgeous. The color is very vivid, and the popularity of the coloring books doesn't surprise me, because we live in a society that is so full of stress. People are looking for any way to reduce their stress. And I think besides the fact that, you kind of have to be in the moment when you're sitting there coloring, and it's forcing you to slow down, it also obviously is going to bring back memories of when you were a child and life was simpler and more carefree. And, the smell of the crayons, right? Brings you right back to kindergarten.
And you know what else I think? I think, honestly, people do so much binge watching on television. They feel like, well, maybe if I color and I have something to produce while I'm binge watching, it's not quite so wasted.
They can still do their multitasking.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, it's I wish what I did when I was going through my ordeal, of course, is I journaled, which turned out to be a very therapeutic for me and a blessing, because when I was writing my manuscript, I had so much material that I had written down every single thing that was happening, because you can't recall things as well as you think you can.
Right, absolutely, especially when you're going through a stressful time.
Mm-hmm. So I encourage anyone doing that to have a piece of paper and journal what's going on and their feelings. I think it's very, very healthy to get it out of your heart and soul and on paper. And because later on you'll find that paper and you'll say, oh my gosh, how did I live through that? And you're in such a different place, and you feel like, wow, look where I was and look where I am. Look how much.
That's a point. That's a great point. That's a great point, to be able to see how far you've come in your progress. And one thing that you wrote
go ahead, I'm sorry.
One thing that you wrote that I love is when you talk about accepting that when one person dies, two people shouldn't. So talk about that a little bit, because I'm sure that was a huge part of you moving forward.
It really was, and it's funny. When I don't know why I've gotten into this counseling where people, honestly, Carol, I don't even know. I'm pretty available online. I'm out there, so I will get an email from someone who is going through what I went through, and they'll email me at night, or Facebook me, privately in my message box. And one happened just recently, 2 weeks ago, and her husband was dying of the same thing my husband was dying. And it really, I'm probably not qualified. I know I'm not, credentialed, certainly, but I'm qualified as someone who's been through it. And she says, what should I do? And I said, you should just sit there and let him, be. And someone else said, he won't talk anymore. He looks into space. And I try to say that they're trying to deal with learning what's happening to them. Just let them have their space. I just feel like I've been there, and they want to reach out to me because they know I've been there. And I tell each one of them, we are not our past, and we are not just our stories, but what you're going through will shape and define you and define your future, and it'll make you who you'll be one day. I mean, there's a reason why we go through what we go through. It isn't just, for whatever that reason is. We probably don't know what it is. But I think if you choose to see the positive in everything, you'll have good things and great situations happen. I don't know. You know what that is?
Yes.
You.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And I remember it reminds me of years ago, the first time I heard the phrase, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger." I thought, how pathetic is that at the time? Well, now all these years later, I think, oh, you know what? That is so true, because you go through things, and then later on in life, when you're going through a hard time, it's much easier to deal with everything that's going on because you have that experience under your belt, and you know to reach out for resources, and you've got tools you can use to cope.
And you have a choice. You have a choice to let it define you, or a choice to be defined by it, to change, to reinvent yourself.
Absolutely.
Many people their identity is in someone else, their children, their husband, their wife, whatever. And when you lose that person, or those children go off and start their life, or your career is ended, you don't know who you are anymore. And you've got to reinvent yourself, or you're going to just be lost. And that's really what happened to me. I had had a career, but it was things that were not anything that were huge. Mothering was my career, and being a good wife, and all the things that I thought. And then when all of a sudden I'm not, my children are growing up, my husband's dead, and it's like, whoa, you're only 40-something years old. You got to start over, girlfriend.
Right, and Prissy, before we run out of time today, I'd love for you to talk about exercise, because exercise is such a huge stress reducer, and that situation is one where people could easily end up on one or more medications, to use as a coping tool.
Forget the medication. That is it is such a crutch. I believe in exercise and meditation. Get rid of the C and put the T there. Meditation. It can be 5 minutes. It can be, and walking, or you don't have to be a runner. You don't have to be a Zumba girl. You don't have to be any of that. You can just walk. It's free, and the birds are chirping, and the sky is blue, and the grass is green, and you can have, gratefulness in your heart that you're able to get out and do that, because so many people don't. So yes, you have to exercise, and no matter how tired you are and how sad you are, if you get out and do it, I promise you, when you get home, you're not tired anymore, and you're not quite as sad.
And I like your link to
make your heart heal, but it's so important, Carol.
Right, I like you mentioning the exercise and the meditation, because then you're getting the physical and the mental break from the situation, and talking about, no matter how tired you are, still go. Because in our society, the second we start to get tired, we take that as an acceptable excuse to not exercise. And then it just,
or go get an espresso,
it snowballs.
Or go get a coffee, or go get a diet drink. And they think, oh, I'm tired, I'm going to go get a diet drink. That's going to give me the pep. Yeah, it'll give you a pep for like a second, and then you're going to crash. But walking or exercising, that's why I love what you're doing. It's so important. That's why your book is so important.
Yeah, and giving these tips to the caregivers, especially people who end up in these situations very unexpectedly, like you did. But before we go, Prissy, share with us your website again.
It's Prissy. I know nobody knows a human being named Prissy. It's usually a cat or a dog, but it's Prissy at Elrod. PrissyElrod.com. I was giving my email address. Yikes.
Yep, that's okay. Well, Prissy, thank you so much for being on the show today. We really appreciate it. Some great tips, and people can read your book and
You're so sweet.
Get some bennies for dealing with some of these very difficult situations.
Absolutely. And if anybody needs help with anything, they can reach out to me, and I'll give my 2 cents, whatever it is, from down here in Florida.
Great. Sunny Florida.
Stay warm there.
Thanks for joining us, Prissy.
So
I'll talk to you soon.
I just want to know when the movie's coming out.
That's right.
Well, it's I'm actually going out there to meet with some of those crazy people. But if the crazy people are listening, I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm just saying.
You don't want them to shut you down before you even started.
Yeah, exactly. I say to my friends, look up, and when you see the pigs fly, that might be when it happens. But we'll see. I'll let y'all know. Have me back on if that happens. How's that?
Prissy, your book would make an excellent movie.
Well, thanks. I'll work on that pitch, Carol.
Prissy, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you, and you have a great voice. You know that.
Thank you, thank you, and as do you, and I look forward to reading your book.
Great. I hope you like it. Thanks, y'all. Enjoy that nice warm weather up there.
Thanks, Prissy. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, Carol. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Prissy Elrod. She is something else, huh?
She's a lot of fun.
Yeah, she seems to be. And again, the book is Far Outside the Ordinary. And it's one that I want to read, so you're going to have to lend it to me, Carol.
Absolutely, yep.
All right. Prissy won't make any, Prissy, I should say. I called her Prissy. Prissy won't make any money on me, but that's all right. That's okay. There is that wonderful Coach Carol Phillips music that we all love to dance to. 3:50 is the time. I'm at the Beacon Building. Carol's here at the Beacon Building.
Dancing in the studio.
That's it. J-Dog can't see us. J-Dog is in the CrewCon Cruise Outlet studio back in Bow with our intrepid intern, Patrick Kavanaugh. And great segment, Carol, with Prissy. Prissy Elrod, the author of Far Outside the Ordinary, which may, in time, become a major Hollywood movie. Who knows?
That would be wonderful. You know, she describes her book as a cross between Steel Magnolias and The Help.
So there you go. Two big movies.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is.
So be watching for that, Far Outside the Ordinary, and it may one day be a movie. Now, Carol, you will be back again on April the 7th, but at a different time, Thursday, April 7th at 2:05.
Right. We're going to do 2:05 instead of 3:05 because I will be heading up to speak at the wonderful Spear Memorial Hospital's Wine, Women, and Wisdom event that's taking place April 7th.
That's W-I-N-E, right?
That's right.
W-I-N-E.
Not W-H-I-N-E. Right. Thursday, April 7th at 5 o'clock up at the Common Man in Plymouth, New Hampshire. And if you want to register for the event, you can go to AskCoachCarol.com, go down to the bottom of the homepage, click on my Facebook page, and find the post for that event. Click on that, and you can register there and come join us and have a glass of wine. It's going to be a light buffet dinner. Join this big group of women just having a great time, 5 to 8 p.m.
All right. So that is on April 7th, and you'll be back with a segment. Do you know what the segment is?
The topic for that day?
Yeah.
We will be having our special guest, Doreen Bork from Manchester Community College, who's going to be talking to us about the importance of exercise and living a healthy lifestyle. I'm very excited to have her on.
I understand she's a pretty good athlete.
She is. She used to be on the U.S. ski team, so I'm excited to talk to her about that also.
Wow. Lots of things to talk about. So that'll be April 7th. Mark it down on your calendar, 2:05.
2:05.
For our next Ask Coach Carol installment here on Kale and Company. And again, your new website, new address?
Right, AskCoachCarol.com.
Very simple, right?
Yep.
Do you have your thought for the day?
Okay, this quote for the day, it's tying into our topic that we were talking about with Prissy, as opposed to Chrissy, but she'll list, she'll answer to either name. Be determined to handle any challenge in a way that will make you grow. And that's a quote by Les Brown.
Les Brown. Okay. Not Les Brown and his band of renown. This is another Les Brown, I think.
I believe
right?
it's a different Les Brown.
Les Brown used to be a band leader with Dean Martin. And it was Les Brown and his band of renown.
Yep. I remember that name.
But this is a different Les Brown.
Who knows? It could be the same one.
It could be the same Les Brown. It's Les Brown.
I'm thinking it's not.
Whichever Les Brown it is, it's a good quote.
He got credit. Yeah, take those challenges and find a way to use them to grow.
That's it. So that will do it. That wraps it up for this edition of Ask Coach Carol. AskCoachCarol.com. Wow. You have really, you've come a long way.
Busy day.
Oh, my goodness. You were just going all the time. all the time, which is a good thing, right?
It's a good thing.
Better to be busy, right?
I love being busy.
All right.